Hey y'all, looks like I'm back at it again this morning. So today my goal is to do a lot of the cleanup around the perimeter of this car I'm sitting in the middle of here. You know, where I cut out the entire floor. I got a lot of old flanges and spot welds and just a mess here I need to clean out before I can really go any further. With the fact that this rocker is going to go away, or this inner rocker panel here, I'm not concerned about cutting this up or damaging any part of that, so I've pulled out a couple of my small air tools and going to try this method to kind of grind the inside of some of these spot welds along the top here, and then from that I'll take my air chisel and see if I can pop that off without damaging anything over here. I've got two different air tools that suck up a lot of volume, so I've got two different air hoses. I've got a 10-gallon 175 psi little small compressor over here, and then I got this 27-gallon 200 psi compressor over here. So I've got, you know, dueling air compressors here, so hopefully I can just, and that one just kicked on, so between that and this electric heater up here, I hope you can hear me, so I'm gonna get to work. Alright guys, well, I got this driver's side rocker panel off on the inside. It was a chore, but combination of a little bit of a grinder. You know, on the outside I needed to drill out those welds to keep them clean, because I have to maintain the outside rocker's integrity. On the inside, you know, it was kind of a pain, a combination of grinding those welds on the top and a little bit of drilling and a lot of hammering and air chiseling. And anyway, I got this thing off. I'm sure I can clean it up, use a little hammer and dolly and get it straightened out. But anyway, let me show you what I got here. So I'd already taken this front piece off before I put the firewall in, and then I started basically from here back. And you know, you can see how this thing is put together in the shop. I thought it would be more in line there, but anyway, I got that off. I'll clean this out. I'll use some rust encapsulator in here once I get it cleaned up. Again, you can see all the sand from when this thing was sandblasted, you know, a long time ago, years ago. So the rocker panel is full of sand. You can see it all down here, you know, and then still up here. I was expecting to see some rat's nests, but didn't see any rat's nests. Just some, I don't know if that's dirt or mud or seam sealer. Anyway, got all that out. I've got, when I put the new fender well in, I'll clean, you know, it'll weld here. But at this point, my goal is to continue all the way around the perimeter here, clean this up so that when the new floor comes in, it'll slide right in place here. And then I can, you know, vice grip it off, temporarily support it along this wheel well. I think what I'll do is I'll pick up again on this passenger side and do the same thing. You know, you can see where I've cut it off before, but I'll work my way back, do the same thing, and then back there is going to be the fun part. You know, there's a lot of disassembly there along that bottom section. All right, let me get back at it. Okay, we got both inner rockers out, and again, this side, passenger side, it's full of dust as well. I expected that. The other thing I found on this, looks like there's two big gobs of seam sealer that just basically fell out here. That's what I'm assuming we have here. Likewise on the right.
The following day.
Well, hey guys, I got a couple of goals for things I want to get accomplished today. As I left you before, I had the front end pretty well set, welded in place. There's a number of things I want to get done. First, I want to get my car set perfectly level on the same plane, and I'll show you what I'm doing there with my laser. Secondly, I want to mock up the new metal I've got. I've got the full quarter panels over there in the boxes. I've got my new wheel wells, and then I've also got the new taillight panel. So I wanted to mock all that up here on this one-piece floor, just so I get an understanding of how it fits together. There are a few places where the floor is going to fit up and it can only go in one position. So that will help locate the floor for the most part. But the distance from the ledge of the rear trunk, or at least the cross panel below the rear window, down to the top of the floor and down to the surface where the fuel tank sits, I want to take those measurements and feel comfortable where that's at. That's the only thing I think can vary. So let me get started up here and I'll show you what I'm doing to level up the car. All right, so first what I've done is I've run that laser level all the way down this outside rocker, and it is perfectly straight right along the top edge of that rocker where the door seam is going to be. Now, when I turn the lights back on, I'll show you where that lines up. And then you can see it comes right along the bottom edge of those front frame rails. So all of that's in exactly the same plane. And then if I turn slightly and look at the front, you can see that the front frame rails are in exactly the same plane here on the right. I'm going to turn this light out so you can see it better. So hopefully you can see that green laser level of the two front frame rails in 2 dimensions there, and kind of, I guess I'd call it an X and a Y, with Z being vertical. What I'm going to do next, and I'm going to take this laser around to the right side to make sure it's duplicating what I'm seeing here. So what you should see here is just that laser level again is exactly along the edge of the frame rail, and again right down the line of that rocker panel. So hopefully you can see that on the rocker. So I'm going to turn the lights back on in the room here and just take one more glance at it. Perhaps you can still see the green laser. I'll take the camera here and let's get a little bit closer down the side of this rocker. So maybe you can see that right along the edge of this rocker panel here. So I feel pretty comfortable where I'm at. You know, maybe it's not as precise of a measurement, but you can see the levels, you know, the bubbles in a good spot there. And so the other thing, I've already taken dimensions and I measured just for my own benefit, you know, comparing it to the Liskey diagram. And I don't know that Liskey is really, I don't quite understand where it talks about 2x minus 6 or 3x minus some other dimension. But what I'm finding is the dimension from the bottom of that frame rail down to here to here, I'm finding that dimension is 5 3/8. So again, from the bottom of the front frame rail down to these floor supports here underneath the firewall, I'm finding there's a 5 3/8 dimension there from the bottom here to the bottom here. And then likewise, if I go back here to the back of the car, so what I'm finding from the bottom of this frame rail where it meets the trunk to the bottom of the front frame rail, I'm finding a dimension that has a delta of about 3 3/8 inches down. So that's what I'm finding, and that's what I'm going to go by. Now the other dimension I've taken is right along the trunk area. What I'm doing is when I measure directly from this ledge along the hinge straight down to a point on the trunk floor, I'm finding that dimension is exactly 15 inches. Exactly 15 inches from here to a point vertically down that I located with a plumb bob. And I'm finding that 15 inches is the same on both sides. Now this side is bent a little bit, and I'll straighten it back up, but when I measure straight where this piece is going to be straight down again to the top of the trunk, I'm finding it's 15 inches exactly. The other measurement I'm taking is from the top of the tail light panel here down to the trunk floor, and I've got a spot here where there's where the old seam sealer is gone. I've got metal surface. I'm finding that dimension is 10 1/2 inches on both sides here. Not over here on this piece, but directly from the taillight panel down to a place where I've got clean metal in the trunk. Again, I'm finding that's 10 1/2 inches. So those are the places I feel comfortable with. So what I want to do now is just clamp all that new sheet metal together just so I get a feel for exactly how it mates together. Alright, so I've got this semi mocked up. Again, these are not lined up perfectly, but it just gives me a relative position of what overlaps what. Basically, this new tail piece fits inside. The new tail light panel overlaps the top of it. The new quarter overlaps it as well. And I can see I'm going to have to do some adjustment here and some bending to get this all to line up. The key is I've got some alignment holes here, and I've got some alignment down here. And then I've got mating flanges in here that I can line up, and likewise down here. So I think once I've got the car pretty stable, I can get it lined up on the existing car. One thing I've definitely learned here is the fact that you can never have enough vice grip clamps, so definitely got to go to the store and buy some more before I attempt this. I've got, as you can see, I got a combination of my blue wood clamps. You know, I make furniture quite a bit over here, so I've got all my woodworking equipment, and so a combination. All right, well, good deal. So let me take this apart.
The following day.
Well, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. You know, it's taken me a couple of days to do all of this preparation to try to get this one-piece floor under the car, and you know, just getting the surfaces prepped on the old car. So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm trying to separate my one-piece floor from the frame, the shipping frame, and I've got, my plan is to take it, slide this shipping frame out from underneath it, put a couple of rolling dollies under it, because, you know, I've got the car up probably close to 18, 20 inches off the ground right now, and I've got to kind of play games with, you know, lowering the car on top of the frame, or on top of the floor, and then trying to, you know, ease the car down little at a time with, you know, all I've got are jack stands, a couple of RV jacks. So this is going to be a gingerly process to try to get the car back down on this one-piece floor. But you know, all the preparation is drilling holes, weld prep. Yeah, just a ton of work to get ready. I'll show you what I've got here on the car. Alright, so I've got it up on 4x4s for landscaping lumber here. And again, it's about 20 inches off the ground. In preparation, I've got my holes drilled on both sides. You know, some of these are when I took out the old inner rocker. And then I've put some Eastwood rust encapsulator inside the rockers after I cleaned them out. I taped off those mating flanges, and then I pulled, after painting with the rust encapsulator inside the rockers, pulled that tape off, and just, you know, you see the overspray, but just some gray weld-through primer on those flanges. And I did that on both sides here, and here. And you know, tried to, you know, these wheel wells are going away, but they're there for alignment at this point. So I'm gonna start trying to mosey this one-piece floor underneath this car and see what I can get lined up.
Minutes later.
All right, so I've got it underneath the car. Now let me show you what the next challenge is going to be I've got to overcome. All right, so I've got it rolled under there. I've got my jack underneath the front of it. I've taken out this first 4x4, and the way these things are built, the firewall has got to go underneath the front of this floor pan, and then I've got the front frame rails that slide into this rail here, the floor support. So I've got to stab it into here in order to get it to work. So that's going to be the challenge. I've got to raise this up, lower the back end, and then maybe put a ratchet strap here to kind of pull it in place. And I know it's going to be a challenge, no doubt about it, but it's always, you know, I'll probably end up having to take a hammer and beat up this metal here up, or either down, one of the two, in order to get these two pieces to you know, to stab together. So this is going to be fun, so let's see what we can pull off.
Day, thousands of tears later.
Well guys, I've been trying to stab this one-piece floor up underneath this firewall for hours. I'm gonna tell you what, I finally settled on a maybe not so elegant method by sacrificing a piece of aluminum scale that I had. You know, like I say, I tried 9 ways to Sunday to get this thing to stab in here, and I'm gonna tell you what, it's a challenge. So let me show you what I ended up settling on. So basically I sacrificed a piece of aluminum scale that I had. You know, this was a T-square from Harbor Freight. It didn't cost a whole lot of money, so I don't feel like I sacrificed that much. But it was out of square and over the length. It wasn't real, you know, the scale wasn't real accurate. So this T-bar's been hanging on my wall for over a year and no use. So I put it to good use here. All right, so you can see what I'm doing. I've got the floor tilted back here in the back, and I'm trying to stab it in up here in the front. I've got the frame rails. Let me show you the frame rails. All right, so I got the frame rails lined up and they're sliding into place. They've still got to come forward about, I don't know, inch and a half. You can see there from the old weld I ground down. So I think I've got it set up pretty well here that I can start raising the rear and then using my ratchet strap to kind of pull it forward. And with any luck, I'll get this thing set up. So I'm gonna set up here in time lapse and hopefully get it in here. All right, let me give it a shot.
Approximately 10 hours later.
All right, I got this floor in and I fought this thing for quite a while, but let me show you what I got done. I showed you my little, I guess, wedges I put in here. I sacrificed that aluminum scale to give me something that would allow me to drive this floor up on top of the firewall. Anyway, that was successful. I've got to take those out. What I've done is I've pulled this thing up. I've put screws here and here, these 3 screws at the right location. Down here, you know, you've got these alignment marks from the new to the old, and then I'll pull this back down and line this up before I do any welding. I got it connected up front properly, you know, aligned well, both sides. And back here, I haven't put any screws in yet, but I've got it working from front to back to get my dimensions right. The next thing I'm going to do is, again, pull the car back up level across and use my laser level to align this thing on both sides. And then I'll be able to run some screws here into this frame rail into the floor support.
3 days later.
All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm pretty excited about where I've gotten to. It's taken me a few days to get here, but I've got the 65 Mustang leveled out on plane using my laser, and I've got a number of screws into the floor on each side on the rocker panels. And I've put a couple of screws in the back where the transition panel is for the pass-through into the trunk. All right, so I'm feeling pretty good about this area. And I've got this ready to press down and weld in, you know, to the front frame rail here. And then the floor support is in good shape. I've got it prepped, ready to weld. This rocker here, I've got my holes ready. I got a screw holding that in place. I've got a few screws here holding the rocker panel level, inner and outer. Same way on the other side over there. I've got screws holding that. And then I put in a couple of screws here holding that floor pan right there to this pass-through panel here and here. And then I've got a screw right here, which probably isn't necessary, but I've got it there. I got that centered up on the gas cap frame and this back tail panel support. I've got my dimensions measured from here straight down to this trunk level, both sides. Feel good about that. So my plan now is to go ahead and start welding in some of these spots here, and then I'll come along and probably attach this floor to the firewall once I've done that. And then I've got to, I've got big 3/8 holes here, so there were 10 plug welds I drilled out, and I'm putting 10 welds back, but these are all 3/8. So I've got to weld those in, both sides, and then I've got some down here on the bottom to get to. I'm not sure if I'm going to weld those in once I put it on the rotisserie. It might make it a whole lot easier. May even, not weld every single one of these, but just enough to make it solid. And then again, I'm gonna put this car on a rotisserie, and then I can pick that up. Then I'm gonna come along and start welding here and here, and then I'll run my way along the rocker panel. And then I'll know I'm solid from front to back, at least to here. And then the plan is to go ahead and bolt the doors in and make sure they're lined up good before I ever start cutting out these quarter panels and putting in the new wheel wells. So anyway, that's where I'm at. I'm gonna go ahead and start getting my welding done, and then I'll get back with you here shortly. Guys, as part of this new floor install, I've got a ton of little brackets. The actual seat risers, I have to weld those in. And so I'm gonna go ahead and take care of some of that. All right, so I got this first seat riser welded in. I used my floor jack with a 2x4 to kind of raise the floor up in certain areas to bring it up tight against this seat pan, and then, or the seat riser. And then over here on the transmission tunnel, I had to kind of drill and pull it in with screws, and that kind of drew this tunnel back over to the seat pan. Then I could weld it in. These other little dots are where I've kind of welded up the drill holes, or the screw holes. I've got to do a little bit more. I may do a little bit of stitching along there, but basically done with this side. All right, guys, I think I'm going to leave the floor right there. I've got the floor pretty well set. I've got my brackets welded in for the back seat area and the pass-through to the trunk. And so this has been quite a chore. I've spent multiple days just trying to wedge this floor into place. It's been a son of a gun, but it's there, it's welded in, it's where it's going to stay, and I think we're in good shape there. So listen, guys, thanks for coming along. I hope this was at least entertaining, if not instructional, as it pertains to how to get one of these one-piece floors in opposite the firewall. There's no doubt that if it can be done, the floor needs to go in before the firewall. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting this thing. The fact that you've got to stab this thing in a particular position, and basically the floor sheet metal and the front floor supports have got to basically slide the firewall bottom flange, or the floor of the firewall, between those two areas, like so. And trying to make metal do that, trying to force metal to do what it doesn't want to do, you're going to be there. Otherwise, you're going to be cutting and welding. So it's done. I'm happy with it. Lesson learned on the next car. All right. Thanks for coming along. Please subscribe to the channel if this is content that you enjoy watching or are interested in. Please come along for the ride. You know, we always appreciate thumbs up. Let's see if we can't get the YouTube algorithm to support, you know, the Roxy and Clem Griffiths channel. So next time we get out here in the garage, or when the weather improves, we'll get the Harleys back out and we'll get on us a nice trip. So y'all come go with us.